Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz, your host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, the Las Vegas Raiders not only dodged one bullet, I think that the Las Vegas Raiders dodged two bullets based on what I saw after NFL Week 1 action. Now, some of you might be going, Mitch, what the heck are you talking about dodging bullets? Well, luckily for you, I'm going to tell you the first bullet that they dodged, and then I'm going to tell you the second bullet that they dodged. The first bullet is this. How many people out there, me, remember that Ben Johnson was the number one head coach that the Las Vegas Raiders were after? Tom Brady wanted them. I wanted him. I think if you were to ask a lot of people around Raider Nation, who was your number one head coach that you wanted? I think a lot of people would say Ben Johnson. Johnson decided to pick the Chicago Bears over the silver and black. I went live on the Raiders Report to talk about it because we were trying to figure out what exactly is going to be our next move. Obviously, because Ben Johnson goes to Chicago, we dodged the bullet and we end up getting Pete Carroll. Because now I'll tell you this, and I even been saying this all off season, I am so happy that the Raiders hired Pete Carroll because you brought in Chip Kelly, because you're able to keep Patrck Graham, because you're able to get Geno Smith for a third-round pick. If you don't bring in Pete Carroll, you don't have Geno Smith. And I know this, Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, or Ben Johnson, I'm going to take Geno Smith and Pete Carroll every single day of the week, twice on Tuesday when you add Chip Kelly into that mix. So to me, hiring Pete over Ben Johnson is one of the biggest reasons why, first off here, I think the Raiders did dodge a little bit of a bullet. And it's not a knock on Johnson, but if you watch that Chicago Bears Monday Night Football game, it was an ultimate collapse. Caleb Williams looked like a freaking world beater in the first quarter of that game. And then after that, it was almost like the Monstars swooped in, stole all of his talent, sucked it right out of him, and they gave it to J.J. McCarthy. But if you're a Raiders fan sitting up here going, you know what, Mitch? You were right. I did want Ben Johnson, but I am super flippin' happy that we have the 73-year-old Pete Carroll who's about to celebrate his 74th birthday on Monday Night Football, and we're going to be going crazy. If you're happy that Pete is our head coach, I want you to hit that like button because it is clear to me that we are moving in the right direction. Good teams find ways to win ugly games. Bad teams and bad head coaches find ways to win, lose, winnable games. And Ben Johnson's team found a way to lose that game somehow. Let's go to the second reason here why the Raiders dodged that bullet. How many times this week leading up to it with the Josh McDaniels talk did I talk about it? Did y'all talk about it? Second half adjustments. The Chicago Bears were horrendous in the second half, and they were outscored. They gave up 21 points in the fourth quarter. I remember at one time it was total yards. It was like 164 to -1. You can have all the X's and O's. You can be a great play caller, but not everybody is built to be a head coach. We had the Josh McDaniels conversations. There are people that can go out there and call X's and O's. Chip Kelly. I don't know if Chip Kelly's built to be a head coach, though. And I look at that Ben Johnson game. I look at that Chicago Bears game, and I'm going, I don't know. Ben Johnson's built to be a head coach. Let's go to the next reason here. The poor clock management. Chugs and I were sitting up here live on Monday Night Football saying if you're Chicago, either you got to kick this field goal because you want to do something before the 2-minute warning. What ends up happening? Poor clock management. The Bears don't have enough time to go down the field, and it's something that, really ate away at Andy Reid when he was early with the Philadelphia Eagles. I get it's why now he's with the Kansas City Chiefs, but good head coaches are always in control of the game. And when you are at a disadvantage at head coach, it might not always show up in the box sheet, but we dealt with it with Antonio Pierce. We dealt with it with Josh McDaniels. Whether y'all want to admit it or not, we dealt with it with John Gruden. We finally have a head coach that every time he walks out there on the field, you sit back and you go, I think we might have the best head coach on the field. The final reason, being disciplined. Chicago committed 12 penalties for 157 yards. And I can remember some of the early Josh McDaniel games. I can remember even some of the AP games where the early McDaniels games, they were just getting thrown so much information that when you're thinking, sometimes you just don't react and you're just not ready for the moment. And you saw that at times with Chicago. With Antonio Pierce, he was trying to be all buddy and trying to be a nice guy, though he's been talking hella trash this week. And again, AP, I see you, and I don't appreciate you saying the things that you're saying about this Raiders team right now, especially if you're claiming to be a Raider. But when you think about the way AP coached, he was trying to be all buddy, and I sat up here on this show, and I said, I had multiple Raiders players tell me that AP wasn't critical enough, and a lot of mistakes happened, a lot of mental mistakes happened. Yeah, the Raiders obviously committed their own penalties, but Ben Johnson looked in like he was in a little bit over his head. I get it's his first start, But when you see that Monday Night Football game, if you're a Bears fan, you're going, oh no, is Ben Johnson a bad hire? So here's my question to all of y'all again. We asked this, I don't know how many times this offseason, and this is going to be the pinned comment here on today's program, which means I want you to answer this, either PC or BJ. Who's the better head coach? If it's the Raiders head coach, give me some Pete Carrolls. If it's the Bears head coach, give me some BJs. For the first time ever, I am turning down a BJ, and I am going for the PC. Pete Carroll, to me, is the guy that I want as my head coach because of everything that he brings to the table, but it's also, he's the perfect head coach for the Raiders because not only does he demand respect, he also is building this thing in the right way, and when you build something with somebody that's done it before with multiple different organizations and the NFL and in college, you kind of buy into it a little bit more. And I think for the first time in a long time, the Raiders have a head coach that every single player goes, you know what? That's something I'm going to buy into because you didn't have it with Antonio Pierce. You definitely didn't have it with Josh McDaniels. And you also didn't have it with John Gruden. You have the buy-in, and it's very, very clear that the Raiders are buying in. Coming up next here on the show, let's get into the second bullet that the Raiders were able to dodge, and I'm really going to test my real ones out there because I'm really going to make you put that thinking cap on, and we're going to hop a little bit back in that time machine. Before I get into that, though, today's show sponsor, PrizePicks. Wait until y'all see my brand new lineup. I am really excited to be able to show you, and hopefully I get another dub this week. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. PrizePicks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. Now, I like to do flex play, so I want to say this. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So last week, I had a $20 lineup for $364. I ended up winning $40 because I did a flex play. Here is my lineup this week. I should mention Travis Kelce is right now their deal that they got going on, and he needs basically just a one receiving yard. Ashton Genty, Geno Smith, Jacoby Myers. You can also see on there with Justin Herbert and Ladd McConkey. I got some mores. I got some lesses. This is a $10 lineup to win $100. And if I get 5 out of 6, I get 20. If I get 4 out of 6, well, I get $4, which you guys can see on screen. And if you want to roll with that lineup, I am hoping that you download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Let's go to the second bullet that the Las Vegas Raiders dodged this offseason, and I'm talking about Mike Vrabel because Mike Vrabel was the very first head coach that the Raiders were interested in early this offseason. And when you think about all the rumors that ended up happening, it's kind of crazy how New England fired Drake Maye and instantly Mike Vrabel was there. But if you follow this show, you'll know that Tom Brady has been hunting down Vrabel to be the Raiders head coach. He was doing that, well even before they hired Antonio Pierce. Once they fired AP, Vrabel was the very first person that they wanted. Once Vrabel ended up taking the job in New England, then they end up going to Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson ends up taking the job with the Chicago Bears. Then the Raiders end up getting Pete Carroll. I'm happy that he was our third option because right now, if you were to ask me, would I want Pete Carroll, Mike Vrabel, or Ben Johnson? I'm going to take Pete Carroll. And it's not only because of what Pete brings to the table, but you have to also consider everything else that goes into the equation because we're looking at another football team, and I get it. Vrabel is somebody that's going to motivate people. And, when I talked about Vrabel a lot, I used to bring up Antonio Pierce and Vrabel because they're both, linebackers. They're both like FU type of buckle up the chin strap guys, and they say all the right things, and they get you hyped up. But if you can't make the proper adjustments, then you're not going to win football games. And New England failed to make the second half adjustments. And just like Ben Johnson, Vrabel's going to figure it out. He was a one-time, coach of the year, and I do think that Vrabel is a good head football coach. But at the exact same time, if you're sitting back going right now and you're going, I would rather have Pete Carroll than Mike Vrabel, that's a dodged bullet. If you're sitting back going, I'd rather have Pete Carroll instead of Ben Johnson, that's a dodged bullet. But the last and final reason of why I think I am very, very happy that the Raiders decided to go this route. Well, actually, before I tell you that, I want to give a special shout-out to our Monday MVPs. And I know I was here yesterday, and it was one of my longest days I've ever had at Chat Sports after a Raiders game day. I got in here at about 7:30. I didn't really get home until about 12:30, 1 o'clock at night. It's a long day, and I plan on doing that all Monday. I bring that up because, mentally, when I show up on a Monday and I know I'm going to get into that long of a day, I'm hoping that you guys pull up, and I'm hoping that you guys show love. So I would say the top 5 MVPs from yesterday's show, from the early Raiders Live and our Monday Night Football show. Special shout out to Yoda Jenkins, Trifle and Jerk, Jerry Danley, the Night Devil, and my guy A-Train was going wild yesterday. Seriously. And there's so many other people, and I mean this, but when you guys do the shit that you do, it makes my Mondays so much better. It makes every single time I go live here so much better. And if you guys want to get more shout-outs on the show, make sure you pull up to every single live show that we do because we're going live a whole lot more. Also, a very, very special shout-out to Noah Suavemente, which I knew I forgot something. No, I had a picture for you, so that's on me. But Noah, everything you did yesterday also on our main channel, bro. Seriously, bottom of my heart. Greatly, greatly appreciate the nation and everything you guys do for us here. Let's go to the final reason here of why I think the Raiders dodged that second bullet. And I've kind of mentioned it, a few times today, but the coaching hires. Mike Vrabel ended up hiring Josh McDaniels. Ben Johnson, I don't even remember who the hell he ended up hiring, but if you don't hire Pete Carroll, you don't have Geno Smith. And hiring the right people matters, right? Like Luke Getsy compared to Chip Kelly. Come on, man. It is like dating a supermodel compared to dating your brother, right? I mean, it's just totally different. Josh McDaniels, I think, is going to ruin Drake Maye. When you have certain players and you don't have the right coordinators paired with them, it just doesn't look as good. Drake Maye with Josh McDaniels, it's not going to be a good combination. But you see the combination of Geno Smith and Chip Kelly and how awesome of a marriage that is. And then I don't know if you get Chip Kelly. I don't know if you're able to retain Patrck Graham unless if you would have hired somebody else. I think you ended up keeping Patrck Graham and you were able to go out and get Chip Kelly because I think both of those coaches look at that job and going, well, Pete's about to be 74. He's not going to be around forever. So if I stick with this Raiders team and we win football games, I might have an opportunity to be a head coach. So from a head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator standpoint, I legitimately think the Raiders have one of the best coaching staffs in the National Football League. And it showed up in NFL Week 1 action. So in conclusion, I believe the Las Vegas Raiders dodged not 1, but 2 bullets by hiring Pete Carroll and not getting Ben Johnson and not getting Mike Vrabel. And I say that because looking at where the Raiders are now and looking how that Week 1 game went, the Raiders made proper adjustments and they won an ugly game. That's what good teams do. The Patriots did not make adjustments. The Bears did not make adjustments. And if we don't have Pete Carroll, I really don't think we have Geno Smith. For all those reasons, I am happy Pete's our head coach, and that's why we dodged 2 bullets.